Well, Taylor, I just rubbed up against you during our hacky sack game this afternoon and took all your lion luck just for this afternoon. So there we go. Look at that. We have one of our Birmingham boys lying down. So super happy. It wasn't far off where I last had his footprints. We knew he would be somewhere around here. Once we did the edge and knew he didn't cross out, he had to be somewhere here. And so we have Nhenha, who is lying down, having a really good rest. And I would have imagined this is going to be the case. You can see his belly is somewhat full. So he was obviously with Tinyo at some point. I know there was at a point 2 male lions on that zebra carcass, so he must have been the other culprit, and he's definitely got a fairly big bump on his belly, not quite as big as what Tinyo had yesterday, but still enough to make him go into a coma with the heat and food, and he'll just kind of sleep it off until a little bit later. But the best thing about this is that, well, hopefully it'll be exactly like what Taylor had yesterday, and later we'll be able to hear him roaring again a bit later. Laura, you say so cute. Well, I don't know if male lions are cute. There's many things that are cute, like lion cubs, but male lions have, especially when they look at you, have this ability to make you feel as inferior as anything in this world. They are massive individuals, and they have this piercing glare with these beautiful eyes, and it always kind of makes you feel a little bit less less significant in this world when a male lion stares you down. So maybe cute while he's sleeping, but as soon as he wakes up, he's definitely something that will be intimidating. And if he roars tonight, he will basically shake everything to the core and make everybody certainly aware that he's the big boss. Now, Guy, you say Nhenha is your favorite. Well, I must be honest, Guy, I think he's my favorite too. He's definitely one of the better looking of the Birmingham boys. Now, I know a lot of you like Mfumo and Tinyo and Nsuku, and you all will have your favorites, but for me, I just like the way Nhenha looks. I think he's got a beautiful mane. It tends to stand very tall above his head, and he's got that black mohawk that comes down, and then he's sort of this dark black on his chest, and his mane is nice and full and big, and he always looks like he's in good condition. So, David, you also say best looking Birmingham boy. He also doesn't have all the scarring that Mfumo and Tinyo have on their faces, but there's something about those two. They might not be beautiful, but they have serious atmosphere about them. Nadal, you say equivalent to a supermodel. Well, yes, I wonder if he does a runway walk as well. We'll have to wait until later to see him doing his runway strut. Hopefully he'll get up and start strutting around, and we'll have to then give him a score and judge him on his runway walk. I'm pretty sure it will be very good. He tends to have the swagger. The Birmingham boys all do. They kind of have this little hip bounce that they do, and it's pretty cool to watch them walking around. So very, very, very happy to find them. That's an unexpected surprise. I really, after this morning when we drove this area, I thought, no, there's no chance that we're going to be able to find this Birmingham boy. And so, super excited that we managed to actually get him. And thank you for walking around during the day, Nhenha. That's very nice of you. Look at the size of those paws. He's got massive, massive feet. It's quite interesting with the Birmingham boys, and I would love to actually see all four of them together again, and just more than actually seeing all four together, tracking all four together, because there's definitely, we find tracks often of the Birmingham boys, and there's a marked difference between some of them. There's one that has very small feet that almost looks like a female's track, and then there's Nhenha, who has quite a large foot. When we were tracking him just now, I was just looking at it, and he actually has quite a big foot. It's not quite as big as some of the feet that I've seen. The Matimbas used to have massive feet, but it would be interesting to see which of the four actually has the biggest feet. Now, Justin, you wondering which is the most dominant of the four Birmingham boys? Well, Justin, this is an interesting question, and one that I don't know if we can actually answer at the moment. We've seen so little of the Birmingham boys lately, and particularly within the groupings of females that we see, we haven't seen who's been mating, we haven't seen who's been sort of looking after cubs, and so it's a difficult call to make as to who is dominant at the moment. We know that Tinyo spends a lot of time with the Nkahuma Pride. He tends to seem to like the Nkahuma Pride, so we know he's there quite a bit. But in terms of the most dominant one, I don't know. We know that Nsuku walks big distances and covers a lot of territory, which means he's the one and Mfumo as well, which are the two that are probably looking after these things and trying to sort of mark out territories and making sure that their area is safe. And Nhenha, well, he seems to just kind of bounce around. He pops up in the most random places. So it's difficult to say. I think what we need is a situation like we had last year, where the Nkahuma Pride spends a vast majority of their time here, and then we can watch the interactions of the four brothers or four coalition members together and see who actually dominates those situations. Faith, you're wondering if male lions are generally alone. Well, Faith, it depends. So in this situation, the Birmingham boys recently are very much on their own. They tend to like to spend time by themselves. What's happened is they've established a really large territory, and they have a lot of area to patrol, and on top of that, there's a lot of females to mate with. So they currently are mating with the Torchwood Pride, they're mating with the Nkuhuma Pride and the Styx Pride, and that's a number of different females to cover, and very large area that they're looking for. They're even getting the Salalas and the Mangen Pride slowly filtering back into their areas. So it's going to be interesting just to see how that goes, and that means that they stretch quite thin, and so each one goes off in different direction, goes to different prides, marks different areas, and they spend a lot of time on their own. If you have a smaller coalition like the Matimbas, they tended to be on together more often than not. So those two males tended to walk around together every single day, unless they were in a mating situation where one would then break off with a female, and they would spend a lot more time as a coalition together. The Majingalan males have always been males that have spent a lot of time together. Even when they mate and they go and they feed on carcasses, within a few days they generally are back together. It's very seldom that we used to see the Majingalans completely split up. We used to see at least 2 or 3 together at a time. So they seem to be a lot more cohesive as a unit. The Mapoko, as we know, split with the Kinky Tail and Mr. T that came up into the north, and the rest down into the western side and central parts of the Sabi Sands, and they formed their own little groupings together, and they were also very seldom on their own, those two groupings. So it just depends on the dynamics and the numbers, as well as the amount of area that they're having to cover. These guys just cover so much that at the moment spread so thin. They also haven't been tested, which means there's no reason for them to stay together. So George, this is also a sort of an interesting one. You're wondering whether a male lion with more scars is either more dominant or less dominant. It depends. And in a situation with lions, a lot of their scars can theoretically come from the females. We know that both Tinyo and Mfumo have suffered a few blows from the Nkuhuma Pride when they were feeding on carcasses, and during that period that they spent a lot of time here, and so some of the scars and cuts would have come from them, and that's no way dominance within the coalition members. But theoretically, what you probably find is the reason why Nhenha is not as scarred up as the other two is he and Nsuko they developed their manes a little bit quicker than the other two did. So their manes got bigger and bulkier, and that would have signified to those two, Mfumo and Tinyo, that these guys are slightly larger, bigger, and more dominant over them, and that's maybe why they've clashed a lot, the two of them, over scraps, whereas Nhenha and Nsuko maybe have fed a little bit easier and haven't had to fight with one another as much because their manes have dominated what's been going on. That's just a theory, it's in no way fact, and it's a difficult thing to say. I've seen some of the more dominant members. If you look at the Majingalan coalition, the one that's known as Smudge, the one with this sort of bare nose, he's got lots of scars, and he's the dominant male within that coalition now. In the beginning, it was a different male, and that was the dark-maned Majingi, and he didn't have as many scars at all. So it just depends also as how things go through their life. Now, I would imagine within this grouping that Nsuko or Nhenha must be one of the more dominant one. So James, the lack of buffalo in terms of affecting territories of these prides and coalitions, interesting. I don't know. We've never had a situation, and certainly not in my time in the Sabi Sands, where we've had such a lack of buffalo in the area. It really is the first time that I've seen so few buffalo in as many months as we've sort of been watching this procession or this development from the drought last year. So to be honest, I don't know. I would imagine that, yes, their territories, they will try and push more and more and more to try and find the food that they need. But if there's no buffalo and there's competition nearby, in the Nkuhuma's case, the Torchwood Pride, that is keeping them at a certain place, then they'll make do with what's there. So they'll start turning more to kudu, zebra, wildebeest, giraffe, impalas, those kind of animals to try and sustain themselves. With the coalitions, they are very much, it depends on what's around them. So the more coalition members we have around us, the less likely they're going to be able to push. So you'll find the Birminghams will push and push and push until they hear other lions, and they'll then come back. So they might range more to try and find buffalo, but as soon as they met with resistance, and if it's a sort of a big resistance in terms of, let's say, the Majingalans or a coalition of 5 male lions in Kruger, then you'll find they're going to stop and they're going to recede back into their territory, and they're not going to push too much further. So that's how it kind of works with the males. The females a little bit less sort of territorial, and they'll be a little bit more fluid in their movements than what the males are. Well, we're going to sit here. I would imagine he's going to be very sleepy for most of the afternoon, so probably we'll sit here for a little bit longer and then go and carry on exploring in the afternoon and then come back around sunset time and see if he then wakes up. But while we do that and enjoy the peaceful sight of Nhenha having a nap, let's go across to Miss Taylor McCurdy, who I would imagine could give him some competition when it comes to a main challenge. Well, if anybody can dominate a herd of elephants, it will be Taylor McCurdy. She shall certainly use that booming voice of hers and discipline any of those young males. So don't worry, Taylor. The war is not lost. You may have lost the battle, but you haven't lost the war. And I'm sure you shall have a beautiful sighting of the elephants going forward. Our Birmingham boy is still fast asleep and taking it very easy. He's done a little roll. We've repositioned slightly and he's rolled over and is definitely very, very sleepy. Shame, he got a bit of a fright when I started the car just now and kind of bolted upright for 2 seconds and then went back down again. But he's positioned himself perfectly, and the reason why he rolled is because his feet, I think, were getting too hot. He's now lying in a situation where his feet are tucked back in the shade, so you can see his whole body is covered, whereas earlier the feet were sticking out in the sun, and I think they were actually getting a bit on the hot side. And I don't know about you guys, but there's nothing worse than hot feet, so I'm sure he's done a good job. And you can see his tail is also tucked into the deepest part of the shade possible, so he's tucked his little tail in there as well, so that's not out in the sun. So he's done a very good job of finding the littlest bit of shade as possible and then making sure that he's actually in shade completely and not having too much sun on him. Isn't that cool that we can get so close and see all of the details on his back? And there, those long legs which he uses for basically speed. Those are the speed legs, and then the front legs are all the power. What's quite interesting is if you'll see as the leg kind of joins the body, that it's darkening quite a bit. So there, just above the perceived sort of ankle, is a darkening of the fur, and so male lions will start to darken quite a bit, and we're going to find a situation when these Birmingham boys are a little bit older, maybe in the next 2-3 years, that their coats will actually become almost a black sheen to them. You see it a lot in lions in the desert areas, and I've seen it on the Mopohos and on the Majingalans. Some of them start to get a bit more of a darker sheen to them. There was one lion actually in the Sabi sands that used to have a very, very dark coat, and his name was the KNP male, so he was a male right down in the south of the reserve. Some of you might remember him as Freddy, for those of you that have been watching for quite a while, and he had a very, very dark sheen to him. He looked almost like one of the Kalahari lions. He was a beautiful lion, and unfortunately his coalition partner got killed by the Mopohos. I think it was one of the last sort of, I don't know if it was ever confirmed, but it was one of the last run-ins that they had was with the Mopohos, and his coalition member then disappeared and he was left on his own, and he soon got ousted by other younger males and ended up being sort of a retiree and nomadic in the Kruger for a while, and then eventually passed away and disappeared. So he was probably one of the darkest male lions I've seen, and then Hairy Berry Matimba was also quite a dark boy. Dennis, you're wondering how strong a male lion is. Well, Dennis, I think this is a hard thing to sort of quantify because it depends on a number of factors. It depends on the condition of that animal, it depends on the size of the animal. Remember, it's much like people. There's genetic differences between each lion, and some will be bigger than others. You'll find that some will be bulkier, some will have, a taller, longer structure. So it just depends on that, as well as the condition of them. Have they been feeding? Are they in health? Are they healthy animals? But I can tell you that they are very powerful. If you can wrestle a 900-kilogram angry buffalo bull to the ground single-handedly, you are seriously powerful. And I mean, I've seen what those buffalo bulls can do to cars and to varying other things. The fact that lions have the power to actually topple that animal and then pin it down is astounding. So they are incredibly strong, and I don't think we can fathom fully just how strong they are. So, Justin, sorry, I missed a little bit of your question there. Alice, it just broke up. If you can repeat for me. How much damage could his claws cause? Well, it depends on what we're talking about. If he's going after something with a tough hide, like a buffalo, or we're talking about something like us, because we are like a soft steak with a hot knife through butter. That's pretty much how his claws would damage us. You'd find big, massive gashes all over you. You'd be lacerated before you can even blink an eye. But in terms of the harder, tough animals like zebras and buffalo that have these thick, tough skins, you often will find evidence of where a lion has clawed at them, but it doesn't leave big gaping wounds like you would see on a human. So it just depends on the actual animal. I've seen impalas that have been attacked by lions and they get lacerated and big thick gashes. Sometimes zebras. We had a zebra here on Safari Live at the beginning of the year that had a massive chunk of skin taken off the side of it. So it just depends. I mean, us as humans would never be able to withstand his claws. A swipe of his claws would cause huge damage to us, and you would be left with big cuts. But in terms of a buffalo, your skin's a bit thicker, not so much. It also depends on how he goes about it. You know, when they attack an animal, generally what they're trying to do is they're trying to just grab it and pull it down. So the claws are kind of being put in, and then they're being held there. Whereas if he was going to swipe at you like they would when they fight, you would have a situation where you'd probably have a lot more of a sort of damage being done to you. If you had a situation where, you know, it kind of clawed at you and followed through with that clawing, you'd probably get a massive sort of laceration wherever it hit you. Whereas when they're catching things like buffalo, then, you know, they're just kind of grabbing and holding on to be able to anchor that animal and pull it down rather than actually swiping through it. And that's why you see a lot when they fight with one another, big cuts and lacerations around the face. And why male lions have big manes is because of that. So as they sort of strike out with this paw, it hits around the fur collar, and the fur itself will be pulled out, but the actual neck and head of the animal will be actually okay. So that's why he's got that collar of fur, and like I say, you wouldn't want to be on the receiving end of that clawed structure. But just as we predicted, he's going to be very sleepy for the next little bit. It's already cooled off quite a bit since we've been parked here. The sun is losing that bite that it had when we started the safari, and I would imagine within the next hour he'll probably sleep for the next hour, and then he'll start to wake up. I don't think he's going to be sort of down for the whole afternoon, but he's definitely going to be quite sleepy for the next little bit. It's hot enough that he's not going to move around. So what I think we're going to do is probably leave him be for now, and then we're going to probably start trying to find something else. We'll go and check around Treehouse Dam, see if maybe Hassan has come back, and then we'll come back to our beautiful Birmingham boy a little bit later when he's a bit more awake. What do you think, Seb? Good idea?
I agree.
Yes. So, right, let's leave him be and let him have a little nap. He might wake up now when I start the car, but I don't think so. No, it's still fast asleep. But that's a nice surprise. Didn't expect to find him this afternoon, that's for sure. And we'll definitely try come back just now. But it's amazing his camouflage. If you look from here, look at the coloration of his coat, and if you had to imagine the grass just being slightly longer, you would see he would disappear in that grass. Look there, that's the view that we have of him as we're driving. Luckily he was facing the other way, so we had the darkness of his mane showing, but it just shows you just how well they blend. And when we're trying to find these guys in thick, deep grass, it's almost impossible. They are perfectly coloured to be able to blend in. So there we go. Fast asleep. Roshni, you're asking if I've ever encountered a lion on foot. Well, Roshni, many times. I've tracked quite a few lions on foot. I've had quite some entertaining experiences and some rather scary ones too. And it's never for the faint-hearted. This particular male lion, where we were tracking and where I was off the car just now looking at his footprints when we started the show, is probably, I would say, from here maybe about 300 meters. It's not very far from where he was at all. He was just on the other side of a bushy thicket. And so the thing about lions is when you approach them on foot, most of the time, particularly here in the Sabi Sands, because we do a lot of tracking and there's a lot of trackers out here at the commercial lodges that are on foot, the lions are pretty used to people, and they know that the people are not something to be too scared about, because we don't chase them off their kills, we don't hurt them, and they generally kind of see you and they just watch you. And if you come too close, their immediate reaction normally is to run and to try and just sort of get some space between them and you, and then from there they'll assess. But if they have something like cubs or food, then you'll find a situation where they can be very aggressive, and you have to be very careful of what you're doing. So we'll have to try and think of some of the stories and some of the sightings that I've had. I'll tell you about some of them just now, but before we do that, I think Taylor has managed to discipline that naughty elephant bull and has sorted out the herd and has hopefully now got a much better view. Let's owe him in a tree just to our right. There lies Nhenha, who has moved all of about, I would say, 1 centimeter with the one leg. Otherwise, he has not moved at all since the last time we were here. Oh, there's an ear movement. That's exciting. So we're still waiting for our Birmingham boy, but it is beautiful. We've got the sun setting, male lion lying under the tree, and it's that time of the day now where hopefully he's going to just start to simmer and start to sort of move around and maybe wake up. And I'm hoping that we are going to see him at least belt out a roar like Tinyo did yesterday. He's got some competition, and since we're all doing theatrics this afternoon, I would imagine that it would be good for Nhenha to arrive in the same situation and to join our party and to tell Alex he says happy birthday with a big loud roar. I'm sure Alex would appreciate that. But for now, still very sleepy. The other nice thing about our sunset is that it's all to ourselves with this lion, which is fantastic. I thought we might have a few vehicles here, but luckily the Torchwood Pride has been in Buffelshoek for the last few days, and the Nkumas have also been up there, and that's meant that people have pretty much had their fill of lions up that side, and so they're not rushing down this way to come and see what's going on. Nice just to stop for a second and enjoy. There is something very special about living in this part of the world. The sun sets, the sun rises, and this afternoon we've joked around and we've messed around and we've told stories about things, and you know, we really are fortunate to do what we do, and it really is the singular best job that I could possibly do. It's something that really, I wake up every day and I'm happy. We were talking about it just now, that we're super fortunate to be able to do what we do, so a sun with a indeed. You just hear the last of the birds as well. There's a few francolins, a couple of guinea fowl that have been calling, but it's definitely getting to that quiet time of the day where everything is just slowly starting to shut down. There's a little bit of a breeze blowing though, which is quite nice. It's at least kept it fairly cool this afternoon. I think without the wind it would have been very hot this evening. Oh boy, are you going to wake up anytime soon? It's amazing just how much these guys can sleep. You know, so Paul, you say both of our sunsets have special meaning. Well, that's a good way to look at it. I think so. I think, you know, wherever Taylor is, she certainly is probably feeling very much the same as we are. That just it is amazing just to be to be able to know that you're in a place where there's still wild animals and the wilderness. And so whether you're sitting with a lion or just sitting on a road enjoying that, it is pretty special either way. So I'm sure Taylor's is just as fantastic as what ours is. I was just giving her a bit of needle because, well, that's what Taylor and I do. We give each other trouble all the time. Much like all of us, really. We all just have a good laugh about things and have a bit of fun and banter between us all. That's one of the other nice things about working at Safari Live, is that it is a very tight-knit group of people, and everyone really gets along with one another and is always out for the best interests of each other, and they look after each other. And while we do banter with one another, it's kind of like a family. You don't sort of give the guys trouble, because everyone will stand up for each other, even if they sort of give each other grief during the day. So it is nice to be a part of that. It's one of the few places I've worked where there's such a tight-knit feeling between everybody, and that includes all the guys in the Mara as well as down here in Djuma. And I hope many of the others in the Mara and all of them feel the exact same way. I'm sure they do. Taylor had a long chat to some of them in the Mara last night, and it was quite fun. At one point we had Rebecca on the phone while we all had dinner, and it was just as though she was there with us. So it was a very cool evening and a good way to do things. Which reminds me, actually, that Brent phoned me today and I missed his call, so I'm going to have to try and phone him a little bit later. Seb, I'm going to move so that you're not so far away, and we can try and see if we can't get a little bit more creative with our Birmingham boy and some of the angles that we view him. Oh, he moved his leg, Sebastian. Can you believe that? Exactly, Roshni. Wakey, wakey, kitty. Yes, big boy, it's time to wake up. Yes, those eyes can start opening. Now, I know you've had a long day, but come on now. It's time for you to wake up. We're all wanting to see you. he is going to be amazing. When he wakes up, he's got such a beautiful mane, this male. I always love when he stands up. He's got this big mane. Seb, you know what? I actually think if you just hold that shot, I'll try and put some spotlight on a little bit for you, just to fill that in a little bit. So for those that want screenshots, sunset and a line, just give me 2 seconds so that I can get my light and just give you a bit of full light so that the line comes out a little bit better. Is it going to work? Not really, eh? But how's that for a screenshot? Male lion, sunset, that is quintessential Africa right there. Well, in my eyes anyway. Very cool. But he is absolutely fast asleep. Come on, boy. It's time for you to wake up now. So you can see it's just difficult with the sort of the darkness of where he's lying as opposed to the brightness of the sun means that we have to make him a little darker. Although, what if we put... So that is very pretty. Well done, Seb.
It's dark on the screen, but...
Yeah, it is a little bit dark, but I do have a way of maybe making it a little lighter. So I'm just going to try and see if I can't. How's that, Seb? Is that a bit better or not really? There we go. So we just put our side light on, which should help to just sort of bring out the shadow a bit of our male lion in the foreground. But that's as peaceful as it gets, I would imagine. Now, like I say, it is a peaceful scene, but once he starts to vocalize, that peace and quiet will be absolutely shattered, and everybody around here will know exactly who's boss of this area. So it's going to be so nice just to sit here and wait for that darkness to set in, and then hopefully for his roars to fill the air. It would be a lovely way to finish off a beautiful day out here, and, well, quite an entertaining one too. Here's a perfect picture for a one-word tweet as well. Hashtag SafariLive, one-word tweet. What do you think of this picture and what this makes you feel as a viewer at home? Because for Seb and I, it's pretty speechless is probably what I would... Well, not speechless, breathtaking. That's what I'm going to go with. Seb?
Yeah.
What do you want to use?
Amazing.
Amazing. So you're going to go with amazing. Alright, so there we go. Colourful? That's a nice one. I like that one too. That is very, very, very pretty.
It's just going to get better and better.
As Seb says, yeah, it's going to get better and better as that sun starts dipping. There's a few wispy clouds actually that have just started to come in as well, and those might start picking up a bit of the light of the sunset. The sun itself is going to go into this orange orb, and it really is becoming so spectacular. It's going to be a very, very pretty way to finish our day, Sebastian. So, John, you say lion-esque. I would say that's a perfect way to describe the situation. It is most definitely lion-esque. I would say that that is as good a description as any so far. It's amazing. The sun is also perfectly kind of situated just to the right of him, which is fantastic. Really kind of makes him stand out quite a bit. And just look at the purples that are starting to develop now in the background there as well. It's really very pretty. I might see if I can... Christine, grateful. That's a very nice one. I like that one too, Christine, because I think we're all very grateful that we get to be able to spend time doing this. And like I was saying earlier, even for us as staff here, we love the fact that we are able to show all of you exactly what we do out there and on this ride as we go through the African bush and spend our time that we do. So, Lady Starfire, you say magical. Well, I agree, it is a magical scene, isn't it? It's one of those scenes that you would kind of wish to see and hope that you get to see in your life. And I'm just glad that we've been able to show it all to you. Like I say, we've taken a few little illegal photos, which we'll try and post at some stage on my Twitter account. So, but look at that sun, is just getting better and better, as Seb says. Wow. Amazing. Now I would imagine that once that sun's down, we're going to have a situation where this guy is probably going to start to wake up, and that will be fantastic for us. And I hope when he does get up that he does walk deeper into Djuma and not so much down into Arathusa side. So, sorry Alice, I was talking and I didn't hear that. You said Roshni said? Ah, Roshni, indeed, meditating. It is, just stopping for a second just to appreciate the beauty of the world is something I suppose we should do more often, and it is like meditating. I actually should stop talking so that you can meditate to the sounds of nature as well. Very special, that's for sure. You can see the clouds I was talking about now, just in the top left of that frame, starting to pick up a bit of a colour from that sunset. But I don't think there is many better ways to end a day than what you're seeing right now. I certainly don't know of any. Maybe with a leopard, but I'm biased. They've given up on us today. The leopards have decided today is not the day they want to be seen. Yesterday and today they wanted some time off, so they're going to be back for the weekend in time to kind of get going. Maybe it was party Thursday for them, and so they celebrated Wednesday and Thursday on the town, and they'll be back home on Friday and Saturday and Sunday, and well, for all the days going forward. That would be nice. So Natalie, you're asking whether I like the sunrise or the sunset the most. Oof, that's a tough one. Depends what I'm doing, Natalie, to be honest. On safari, sunrise. I tell you why. The reason why I like the sunrise is because it brings about a new day. It's exciting because we don't know what's been out there, what's been happening in the night. It's like decoding a mystery when you're out here. There's tracks, there's sort of freshness, there's lots that might have happened during the night, and it's the unknown. That's what really I like about being out in the sort of sunrise, and just watching a new day breaking is always very pleasant. But if I'm on leave and I'm with family and friends, and there really is few better things than having a apple juice with family and friends and enjoying a sunset. So Dula Ann, you say supercalifragilistic for your one-word tweet, and I think that's the winner for today. I would say that's a lovely way to describe what we have just witnessed. And Seb, I like this shot. That's beautiful of it just going down behind that tree. So Tucker, you're also coming out with the super duper. So the two of you have used the super as a part of your one-word tweet, and I like them both. So well done, both of you. You're both 5 years old, and I hope that you're having a nice day wherever you are, and that you are enjoying the sun setting and the male lion as much as Sebastian and I are enjoying it. And thank you very much for sending through your one-word tweet. I always appreciate it when we hear from the younger generation. It's definitely very hopeful when we know that younger people are watching, because hopefully we'll inspire them to be able to look after the planet going forward, and to be able to get out here and see all of these things at some point in their lives, or to be able to experience nature wherever they may be. If they can't get to Africa, just in their own backyard, there's often beautiful places within reach of everywhere, and trees and nature, and so hopefully. Now Di, you say all we need is a roar, and well, I agree, Di. If he had roared while that sun was going down, it would have been the best soundtrack that one could have asked for. But he's definitely, his lip has been twitching a little bit, so I know he's probably fast asleep, but you see his eyes starting to open slightly. I think he's starting to think about stirring. It's definitely cooled right off now. The light is going, and I think he's going to start thinking about waking up. There you can see the eye is slightly open. Not fully, he's just keeping a little look at us. Oh, a little twitch. The grasses, you see the grass is twitching his eye. So the grass is just touching the hair on the corner of the eye, and that's what's making his eye twitch a little bit. Well, we're definitely going to sit with him and make sure that we spend as much time as possible, in fact all the time that we've got left this afternoon, and hope that he does bless us with a roar and give us a beautiful sort of show of just how intense it is. And while we do that, Taylor McCurdy is around, out and about, and I wonder if she's asked Craig for any more predictions, or if she's got a prediction of her own as to where the spotted cats might. Well, Taylor, if there's a screenshot or a desktop, there we go. That's about as good a desktop as I can muster. There's a male lion and probably one of the most beautiful skies that we've had in a while. Those clouds have really come alive with colours, and so I think between the ground hornbills and our beautiful Birmingham boy, we're in for an absolute treat this sunset. Isn't that a beautiful scene? Very, very nice. And he's still fast asleep. He moved his head a little bit, you may have noticed, but otherwise still fairly sleepy. There's been a few little grunts here and there, and like I say, he did move his head a little bit, so I'm hoping he is going to wake up fairly shortly. It would be really nice if we do get a big bellowing roar coming from him at some point in the next little bit. He's starting to run out of time though. You've got 20 minutes, my boy, to start waking up. And it was around this time yesterday that Nhenha started to wake up and started to really get going and started to kind of start calling. So I imagine it will be a similar thing with Nhenha. It's still a little on the early side. In fact, I remember yesterday I got to the hyena den at about 6:45, and that's when he roared for the first time. So still got a bit of time to be as punctual as his coalition member. But wow, what a way to finish our day, that's for sure. Now, I'm going to take the spotlight off him because I only put the spotlight on just, little twitching, still fast asleep then. He's dreaming if his mouth is twitching like that. You see a few of the flies that are landing on him. Those are those biting flies that can be a little painful. And the reason why they're landing there is that they're going towards the mouth that's slightly open. And there'll be moisture on the gum line and around the teeth that they'll be trying to sequester the moisture from that and actually get moisture much like they would drink from a little bit of water. And that's why they land in that area and go up into the mouth and the nasal cavity to try and get into there. And like I say, the reason why I had the spotlight on was just to balance it with the light of the sky. So Tesla, age 7, hello Tesla. It's been a while since I've heard from you, Tesla. I hope you're well. And you want to know, do all male lions have red in their mane? Well, Tesla, male lions actually don't have red in their mane. They have what we call blonde. Now, it's not a full blonde or platinum blonde that we see on people, but we refer to that color as blonde in a male lion. And lots of the males in Kruger do. So not all of our males here have very thick black manes like you see in parts of the desert areas like the Kalahari. But what you're seeing now is his mane seems a little bit more red because it's reflecting the light in the sky. The sky is very orangey red color, and you can see even the grass itself has gone that color. So there we go. You see, look how orange that is? And so that orange is casting a light and color onto his mane. That's why it looks a little bit more red than it actually is. It's a little more yellow in real life than what you're seeing on the camera. But how is that? So, Carsten from Denmark, you were asking how old is this handsome fella? Well, this handsome fella now, it's a rough estimate because we don't know for exactly the day that they were born, but we think now the Birmingham males, I must just remember, they must be about 6 years old now, if I'm correct. 6 and a half, somewhere there. Oh, big stretch. Look how he's hugging his paws together. I love when male lions do that. Okay, it's time to start waking up, big boy. I wonder if that's going to be a start of his waking up procedure. It often is the case with lions, as it takes a little bit of time for them to wake up, and they start with a few little stretches and yawns, and hopefully that's a good sign of things to come. But I believe Taylor McCurdy has found her ground hornbills, and they are perched high in a tree, and I hope Batman hasn't decided to go and hang upside down with the ground hornbills, because that might just chase them away. Well, we've gone into infrared now as, we've got a bit of movement, a bit of stretching. That's the first movement we've had since you guys went away. And so we've gone into IR because it's starting to get a bit dark, and I don't want to put lights on him, as we've said over the last few days, or weeks or months actually, that we've had IR, that we prefer rather just to leave the animals in peace. And so no lights means that he hopefully will start waking up and go about his natural business as he would have done if we weren't here. Although he looks as though he's comatose at this stage. I don't think he's really interested in waking up anytime soon. I was hoping with a few stretches here and there that would be a sign. Oh, Laura Moore, you say he looks so cozy. Well, he does, doesn't he? Here we go, a bit of stretching. Oh, are we waking up a little bit? No, not really. I was hoping that was going to be a bit of a wake-up. Is that eye open, Seb? No.
Not really.
Not really. It would be nice if that eye opened. And what we learned, though, from yesterday is that Tinyo roared while he was lying down, so it might be possible that he does start to roar even like that. I think what we need is to kick him off as one of the brothers to make a noise. And I haven't heard any of them roaring. I actually don't even know where the other three are. I think there's one in Buffelshoek with a tortured pride at the moment. I have no idea where the other two are. I don't think they were found this morning this side. Maybe they're down in Mala Mala. But we need one of them to make a noise, and that should then kick off Nhenha to start actually calling. You can see there's still a little bit of light in the background. It's not much at this stage. It's just fading away. There's a deep red on the horizon, but other than that, it's pretty much gone. Safari Wildman, you say if Nhenha 15 minutes to get your dinner. Well, yes, I think that's going to be a long shot, unfortunately, in terms of hunting. So I'm not sure we're going to see him hunting this evening, but roaring is still something we can hope for. So if he's not going to get dinner, maybe if he can just shout that he is the king of this area, that would also just be fine. And I would certainly appreciate a roar from a lion. It's been so long since I've heard a lion roar next to the car. John, the lions most definitely do rest more when it's hotter. You'll find now in the winter they're actually a lot more active in the afternoons and the early mornings, even when the sun is up. In the summer months, by half an hour after that sun is up, it's so hot that the lions generally are seeking shelter and are trying just to get out of the sun. So they're definitely more active in the winter months than summer. Summer, they time to take it easy and get into shade as quickly as possible, and they suffer with, especially the males, with these big furry manes. You end up with a situation where they, panting all the time, and so they're almost feels like a spring evening. It's so warm. It's very pleasant. Seb and I are both sitting here without jerseys on. I mean, I've got a vest kind of thing, but Seb's in a t-shirt, and it is very pleasant. In fact, I'm actually quite warm. Don't know about you, Seb.
I'm perfect with a t-shirt.
Perfect with a t-shirt. There we go. So it just shows you how nice the temperature actually is. And maybe that's a driving factor to why he's still fast asleep and actually hasn't moved too much. Would be nice if he just popped his head up at least for us. Even if he doesn't roar, just to see him sitting up would be very pleasant in the long run as well. Come on, boy. So, Justin, you want to know if lions' feet are ticklish? Well, Justin, don't worry. I'll just pop out right now and go and tickle them and just see how he reacts. I have honestly no idea. I've never tickled a lion's foot when it's been awake because, well, it seems like a silly thing to do. It's part of the Darwin wards, I would imagine, going to go tickle lions' feet while they're awake. But I'm not sure, to be honest. If you look at domestic cats, trying to touch their feet is impossible. They seem to always move their paw, and I would imagine lion would be the exact same situation. I'd imagine they don't like their paws being touched too much. And whether or not they're ticklish, honestly have no idea. But you're welcome to come and try, should you want to, at any time, as long as we can film it. It would be... And you really are welcome to come try. I doubt you'd even get close to him, though. I'd probably find that he'd run before he did anything else, and if you really pursued him, he'd probably just chomp you, which is neither thing we really want to do out here, so never tickle the lion's foot that is awake. But I will tell you one thing, when we darted the lions last week to do those TB tests further north in the Kruger, when lions are sleeping, a lot of the time they'll look as though they're sleeping, but they're actually quite awake. So you need to touch in areas that are sensitive, and so the areas that are sensitive the most is their ears. So what you do is you put your finger in their ear and you just fiddle around on that hair there, and that causes the sensory cells, and if they're starting to wake, the ear flickers, and then you know, okay, these things are starting to wake up. If the ear doesn't move at all, then you know that they're still in quite a nice sleep and they are still able to be worked on. So it is interesting that the ear is ticklish. Feet, I don't think so, because the vets didn't tickle their feet at any point or ask me to tickle their feet the whole time that we were there. Alright, Nhenha, it's time for you to start opening that eye, not just to be winking at us. Yes, well, okay, you can wink at us too, because we quite like that. But it is time for you to wake up, and so we're going to give you a slight break, and then when we come back, you're going to have to wake up. We're going to try and script this and see if it works. So we're going to go across to Taylor, and hopefully the next time you see us, there will be this boombox of a lion with his head held high, roaring at the camera. He does indeed, and he's even yawned a few times, so maybe this is going to be time for him to wake up. Another vehicle's joining us, so let's see if he decides to sit up. You can see he's just kind of mouthing, and those eyes seem as though they're still a little bit heavy, but let's see, maybe, just maybe, we might see him wake up. There's a few flies buzzing around his eyes that I'm hoping are going to keep him from sleeping. Come on, buddy, up you get. No, don't go back to sleep. You were just starting to wake up. There we go, you can see there's at least a bit more movement than what we've seen, and he's most definitely at least alive. So, Jen, you're wondering how often lions have to eat. It depends on what their last meal was, but generally on average the lions in these areas feed every sort of 3 days. I mean, that's a very rough estimate as to how long they actually feed, so it's not an exact science, but 3 to 4 days between sort of meals on average. But they can go as many as 2 weeks without eating, but they become emaciated very quickly, and you'll find the situation where they don't actually they actually go into a phase where if they get too weak, they can't hunt for themselves. But 3 to 4 days is about the average. Now, unfortunately, that light is probably going to cause him to close his eyes because he doesn't really want to be seeing it. So I don't know whether he's going to sit up now with that. Come on, big boy. Time to wake up. He is fast asleep still. It looks like the eyes are just closing more and more and more. No, there we go. Come on. Up you get. Adele and Natalie, you're wondering if the lion's mane ever stops growing. Well, the thing is with the lion's mane is that it's constantly being pulled out. So as these lions walk around, they're losing bits of hair. So it does grow all the way throughout their life, but it's going to have parts of it that are going to be ripped out, and there will be certain genetics that will sort of determine how long the hair actually gets. So they almost have their own natural hairdressers in terms of the trees and thorns and grasses and all these other things that stick to it and pull it out. And so that's why it doesn't get massively long. You don't get lions with long ponytails hanging down their back, which would be quite funny. Imagine a dreadlock lion. I've seen t-shirts like that with a dreadlock lion from the old Bob Marley days. But no, their hair doesn't grow as long as that. It does grow throughout their life, but it will get pulled out and new hairs will have to grow all the time. And so it never really gets a chance to get as long as what human hair would get. Oh, my boy, you've got a few minutes to vocalize your territory. Come on. There we go, he's listening now to something. Come on. I wonder if one of the other lions isn't roaring somewhere that he's just heard because he's all of a sudden popped his head up. Seems like he's staring into the distance. So Dennis, you're asking if this male lion has any brothers. Well, we don't know if they're brothers, but he does have fellow coalition members. So there's 3 others that form part of the Birmingham Boy Coalition. So there's 4 in total. And I'm not sure where the other 3 are. I think there's one that is further north of us at the moment with a female from the Torchwood Pride, and I haven't seen anything else. Well, I haven't heard anything else of the other 2, but they were around the other day. There was some were seen on the southern side of us. There was one that was on the western side, and then one in the north. So all 4 were accounted for. Look at these teeth when he opens his mouth. Massive. Oh, that's nice. And look at that mane. Does he not have the most impressive mane? Come on, you're big roar for us to close out here. Come on, big boy. Definitely some yawns. But at least he's giving us some sort of action to finish up the day. And oh, look at that. Those canines are huge and all in perfect condition still. They are long, they're not too yellow yet. And he's definitely now starting to wake up. This is typical of a waking lion, yawning, grooming, and it's often an indication that he's thinking about standing up and walking. It might take a while, it might take probably another half an hour or so for him to really get going, but he's definitely now starting to wake, and unfortunately, it's too late for us. Mischief, you say, looks like he wants to hit the snooze button. Well, yes, I think so. I think he wants to hit the snooze button at some point, but now that night has fallen upon him, the snooze button is going to have to wait until a little bit later. You'll find he'll patrol for a while, and then you'll find somewhere to lie down and rest for a bit during the night, and then back up again before dawn to carry on his patrol, if he doesn't hear anything. Obviously, if he hears something dying, he might go that way, or if he hears females, he might head in that direction. It's all a little bit different. So our poor male lion, unfortunately, didn't give us a roar, but he certainly gave us a beautiful sight underneath that setting sun. So either way, it was very nice to see him, and a welcome surprise after this morning. I really didn't think we'd get any chance of seeing this male lion this morning. So happy that we at least found him, and it's been an entertaining at least day, really. We've had quite a lot of fun, and Taylor has been her normal self, and very special rap from Seb and Craig on camera. It's all happened this afternoon. So from all of us, thank you very much, and we'll see you on our sunrise safari tomorrow morning.